And I'm loving life with friends. Doing my life with friends. Doing my life with friends. Doing my life with friends. And I'm loving life with friends. Doing my life with friends. Doing my life with friends. And I'm loving life with friends.
Hi guys. So on the podcast today we have two people that I love very much. I've got my cousin Ayo, who's basically my brother, and his beautiful wife Konyinsola, who is also my sister. And I just love their journey and their story, and I want them to come and share that with you all today. Because I feel like every time I speak to you guys, even though I'm ever so slightly older, just a little bit of older, I feel like I just always learn so much from you guys and just learn from your story, and it's something that I really admire, and I just think that people will learn from that as well. So that's what you are here for today. So I guess to kick it off straight and get right into it. Tell us about your story. Should we hear from Ayolu? Do you want to tell us, how the romance really occurred?
Wow. Yeah, I can jump straight into it. I think I'll start from, I guess, literally friendship. So we had met university. So we both went to Leicester for uni. Coin went to De Montfort University. I went to University of Leicester. But the way it works, Leicester's pretty small as far as uni is concerned. So people generally, it's not too far. Everything is walkable. And I lived in an accommodation with a few of my other friends. I'll even shout Joshua Kitson, shout out to them.
Big up.
In fact, they actually come into the story because we had a small group of Bible study in our accommodation, essentially led by us. And people used to come over and visit. Joshua Kitson, one of the friends I mentioned, was doing photography at the time, and Konyinsola was modeling at the time. So that's how they met, essentially. And Joshua Kitson just invited her. He was like, yeah, we do a Bible study every time. Do you want to come? And yeah, she was like, yeah, I will. And she came maybe 2 weeks after he...
Yeah.
About 2 weeks after he kind of, invited you. And we hit it off. We were friends and stuff. And for a long time, we just had a very fantastic rapport. Just essentially, we just go along like a house on fire, the banter, all the stuff. I don't think it was immediate. It took a while to even figure out because, I guess, even added context. I grew up in Nigeria till I was 13. Queen grew up in Nigeria till she was 14.
Yeah.
Right? And there's little inside jokes that people that have that hybrid experience, essentially. There's inside jokes and stuff. So we had a lot of rapport. Anyway, to cut a long story short, maybe towards the end of my final year. Yeah, literally. Before that, I had started kind of feeling Konyinsola romantically in my final year. I started feeling romantically in my final year of uni. But again, at the time, which looking back, I thank God for, I was walking with God through these things because again, she was so close that I didn't want to just do things willy-nilly, if that makes sense. So I spoke to God about it at first, and the first thing I heard was, wait, did I even hear wait or did I hear don't go there? So I just thought, fair enough. And there would have been various reasons for that. I think maybe at the time I just maybe didn't even fully, I needed to kind of reflect on why do you like her? Why do you have these feelings towards her? And essentially what's behind it, kind of understanding that and letting there be a single-mindedness, essentially. But yeah, I guess towards the end of my final year, I went back to God. I was like, yeah, we have to talk about this again. I can't even lie.
My feelings.
Yeah, we need to discuss. We need to chat. But yeah, I prayed about it, and at that time I heard wait. And I was actually talking to Konyinsola quite a lot at that time. I remember just being, again, because there was just a lot going on at that time as far as, essentially we landed on the idea of I'm talking to God about some things, he's telling me to wait on some stuff. And Koy not knowing what it was about, she was like, you know what, wherever it is, sometimes my advice is just go for things, just go for it. I said, you don't even know what you're asking for. But at that time, it took maybe about 2 weeks from when I brought it up to God again. And again, I was kind of journaling every day. This is after exams. I had a lot of time on my hands. I was journaling every day, praying about it and stuff. And between that time, I kind of went through a journey, speaking to friends, speaking to different people. Essentially, I then told you how I felt. And then from there, it transitioned. It was natural and at the same time kind of strange. Like, okay, we've literally shifted gears. But then from there, again, the friendship kind of blossomed, the relationship blossomed. And yeah, man, she's my best friend. She's my babe, all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it's literally been like that ever since, man. You know, so yeah, that's how it started.
Obviously, I feel like I've heard this story before, but every time you're telling it, I'm like, tell me more. Wow. But I think there's so much in there that we're going to start to like pick apart, and it's brilliant because you guys weren't even, you weren't here when we shot the last episode, but I love that you're speaking to things that were referred to in terms of the intentionality. Like you see that you have these feelings, not just like acting on them straight away, but because this is your friend and somebody that matters to you, you take that thing to God, you pray it through, you think about actually, why do I feel this way? You process, like, because I feel like we're in such a like generation where it's like, I just act like I feel this way and go for it, you know.
I want it, I get it.
No, exactly. And it's like, no, it's not. And that's why the fear continues and persists around the whole friendship and friend zone, because you've not really done it well. You've just acted on a feeling. So you it probably doesn't go well and you lose the friendship, and then that contributes to the myth, as opposed to actually, let's break down why doesn't it go well when we don't do these things well, and how should we be doing it. So I really love so much that you said in there. I will come to Konyinsola now for like your POV, your perspective on that experience.
So I mean, I don't disagree. I feel like every time I hear people talk about stories, somebody's like, no, it didn't happen like that. But anyways, everything is actually about right. But from my point of view, I'll say maybe naturally I'm somebody who is not always very in tune with my emotions, and I think it comes from a place of like protecting myself. So I'm not extreme where it's bad. It's just like, oh, I feel bad, I didn't even notice I was sad until after or something. So in the same way, I don't know if I was catching feelings, but I didn't know. If I was, I didn't know. And again, even thinking about something that was said on the episode that you're speaking about, that podcast episode that you shot, we were talking every day. So I think that's probably one of the things that helped the transition. So we're talking every day. So maybe I was catching feelings, I don't know. But of course, our friendship was growing tighter, because to me, that was still just my guy. Like, oh, that's my brethren, you know, even though we're talking every day. But, you know, I just thought, yeah, that's my guy, you know. But in that time and in that space, I guess we were seeing different parts of each other. When he's stressed during uni, when you're busy, when you're happy, your thoughts, your emotions. I'm praying to God about this and I'm giving you advice. I come to you with stuff, you're giving me advice. So we got to also see each other in ways where it was like, when he expressed himself, it wasn't like, where did this come from? It's not like that. So I think there must have been some sort of like, because I also don't believe in moving to people that you don't even have any clue where this could go. You know, of course, sometimes you could see things and maybe you didn't see right, but at least we were talking every day. We had some sort of at least depth to our friendship where it made sense, you know, to at least even ask or express yourself, so you don't go crazy there just like, oh my God, I'm in love with this person.
You're like,
you know, so it just, when, you know, he even expressed himself, again, I wasn't that in touch with my emotions to know how I felt, but also just because of how much I valued him as a friend, and it wasn't so far-fetched, like I would never date you. So I was like, you know what, I think I said, let's see how we go, let's see how it goes. Well, what's the worst that can happen?
That's what you said.
What's the worst that can happen? Oh no. Wow. I was just paraphrasing, I didn't know that was verbatim. But almost like, probably I was just thinking out loud, like, literally what's the worst that can happen, because he's a good guy, he loves God. Like the kind of things that are non-negotiables, that should be a non-negotiable for everybody foundationally. Those are the things that what's the worst that can happen. You know, that was my mind frame in that. And it was just like, well, we're talking every day. Let's keep talking every day. I remember the next morning I journaled too, because I was talking to God, and I'd recently maybe written like a sort of list of not even a partner, mainly a friend, what I wanted in a friend and what I loved in a friend. And he matched that list well. So I was like, well, God, you know this list. And then I tried to tailor it to a partner even after we spoke, just to see, you know, that is there actually some sort of alignment. And I was like, you know what, there is. So let's quickly see how it goes. And if it didn't work out, I mean, I cannot force myself to be with anybody. So, you know, but by the grace of God, It worked out.
Oh, glory. Hallelujah.
Took it.
I love, you know what? So I love that some consistent themes keep coming up between like this conversation and like our last conversation. The journaling thing as well seems to like be a consistent. So people journal. I advise you buy journal, write.
Right.
If you use your phone, write
your
it down. Write your feelings. Honestly,
Important.
process these things. I always say like it's slightly unrelated, but we have the book of Psalms because David took the time to journal his
Yeah.
feelings. Like imagine
Wow.
we are reading a book of prayers and Bible that's literally somebody pouring their heart out to God.
Yeah.
So I think it's so profound. You know, being able to articulate your thoughts, and sometimes some things make sense in your head. When you put it down, you're like, maybe. So I love the intentionality with which you guys like approach it, and it's slightly unconventional. But even Konynsola's approach in saying, what's the worst? It's not like it wasn't a careless what's the worst that could happen. It was very boundaried. It's like this person is within my value system. They are within the range of all the things that I'm praying for and I desire in terms of a friend or even potentially partner. So let's go for it. I like that because I think the other side of things we do is to also overthink everything. Where we're like, I've not heard a voice. Say it to me.
A dream,
a vision, thunder, lightning, fire, rain, everything. Because sometimes it's really just that God really speaks to you through your sanctified experience, and you just have to like pay attention. He's given us the ability to deduce things and to reason, and when you're doing that within the boundary of godly community who can advise you and pull you up, I think it's a safe place to be. So I do really like the story from both your perspectives. So I come back to Ayolua now and say, obviously, as the cousin / big sister, I know that there were a few girls too, that they thought that you're nice looking young man, a nice looking handsome young man.
Well,
So in your journey in kind of that space, what was it that stood out to you about Konyinsola? Or in fact, before that, what was your sort of conviction around this is how or when I would pursue somebody? What am I looking for type of thing?
Should I tell? I'm going to tell this story. It's actually from way before I met Coin, before I went to uni and stuff. It's got nothing to do with it. I think I've mentioned it before for a couple of times. There was a time, like when I was younger, where I remember two different friends from like different areas of my life, one from school, one from church. Literally, they didn't know each other. They were both at my house. I can't remember why, because mixing friendships like that, I don't know how that even happened. But I remember there was a time I mentioned that there was a particular girl I was talking to. Again, this is maybe secondary school, max A levels or whatever. And one of my friends was like, "Bro, you're always talking to someone."
Yeah.
And I said, "What?" And I went back and forth with him a little bit, like that's not the case. And then I asked this other friend again. They didn't know each other from different areas of my life, and he just nodded. I said, "That's fantastic." And I've never forgotten that. And I think at that point in time, I think what that made me do was like, you know what? If that's the case, maybe I didn't even notice that, but if that's the case, maybe don't speak to people just because you're supposed to. Again, considering the age, when I say A levels, this is what? Between 16 and 18, quote unquote, fairly young or whatever. So people sometimes just do things because. But I think from then it was just like, you know what? Doing things just because it just doesn't make the most sense. Do you know what I mean? Took some time to, I guess, really, really take that in or imbibe that, but I had registered it from then. I guess uni times and stuff like that, there were one or two people, but I think, again, God really kind of took me through a journey, like literally just walking with him, where it was like, you know what, whatever the case, is with, I guess, romantic relationships or like speaking to girls or whatever the case is, there has to be an intention behind it. There has to be a reason behind it, basically, and why you're doing it. And again, I went through some experiences where I was just like, you know what, I don't want to do things just because anymore. I just don't. This is maybe like a year before I told Corey how I felt because I had met you. But like I said, I just don't want to do things just because anymore. That if you're saying, you move to a girl because she's pretty, there's a lot of pretty women. So what's the other criteria? Okay, she's pretty. I've heard some people say, she's pretty, she's kind, or he's good looking, he's kind. Kind isn't, that's cool, that's good. it's a criteria. But that's also, there's a lot of kind people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind people. There's a lot of good looking people. There's a lot of there's a lot of different people that have some of these
things.
characteristics.
Yeah.
But then it's like, okay, what essentially draws me to this person that I'm going to actually essentially move to? And I think for me, the metaphor that kind of was guiding me at that time. At that time, I kind of pulled away from a lot of music that I was listening to, and I kind of wanted to just listen to, not necessarily just gospel music, but at least songs that, just edify, basically. And my biggest fear, because I love music, one of my biggest fears at that time was that I just wouldn't find a lot of good music if I stuck to only gospel music. That was my mindset at the time. So, in creating, for example, new playlists, I'm getting somewhere with this, I promise. But in creating new playlists, it was like, okay, I'm not just going to add any song. The song has to be like, yo, what is that? What's that sound type stuff? And I was like, you know what? That should be essentially, if you have that high standard for something as simple as music, like you should have a standard like when you see a woman that you want to move to, it should be like, who is that? If I don't talk to her today, like I have to, you have to pull you out of your seat. And I think that was really essentially the criteria that helped, I guess, with Konyinsola. I was like, you know what? It had to be I also had I had a list as well, but more than just like, oh, you matched quote unquote what I had written down. It was like, no, like my heart spoke to this situation. And I think that, that was me.
That is so good and so special, because again, we will all protect our hearts so much more because I feel like sometimes people just date out of either boredom or just, they're just trying this one today, try that one tomorrow. And it's like, at the end of the day, I really believe that these are all marks on your heart. These are all marks on your heart. And these are things that will all show up. Like you're literally collecting different experiences, and in the residuals of your heart, they will show up in whatever relationship you do end up in.
Yeah.
So I've always been a believer that there should be a lot more intentionality in the behind the scenes of you going to like express your feelings to anybody. And I think that feeds into the slight myth around, dating in church, where people are like, especially guys, they're like, I don't want to ask anybody out in the church because this is not. But the issue is that if you go around asking all the girls out carelessly, you will have a bit of a reputation. In fact, they'll be like, oh, has it come to you too? Oh, he asked me out last week type of thing. And that's never what we want. I love what you said there. It should be the music that moves you. That you're like, yes, this is the one. And that's not every song, right? Even some, they would tug at your heartstrings, but it's still not quite there. So it's about waiting for the one that you're like, okay, this is worth the pursuit. So I really do love that. Do you have any principles for us that you also live by in terms of what was your kind of guiding principle around?
To be honest, for me, the only addition to that is definitely carrying God along. And, we briefly touched on how we might not be thunder and lightning and everything, but a precursor, is that what they say? To that is having a good relationship with God to start with, where you trust that, God is leading me and guiding me. So if I feel a conviction or a pull towards a decision, I have to trust that if I happen to be wrong, God can also take me out of this situation, so whether that be moving to somebody, I don't know, there needs to be another term that also captures more, I don't know, is it life? I would say, well, maybe because we're not 18 or 19 anymore, but at least considering somebody and just taking that step to seeing where they're at and if they're also interested, or pursuing somebody. Let's say that pursuing somebody. But just carrying God along and trusting that, what, I'll take my time, but at the same time I'll move, because there's also the crippling, seeking God of just, I'll see God for 5 years for somebody. When they marry and have children, you still be seeking God on if they're your wife. But anyways, just seeking God, and also just taking steps, trusting that he leads you and he guides you, and having a heart where you are, and even myself, because, one of my uncles was saying, when we're planning for the wedding, just everybody's protective. That man should better take care of you. You're my baby. And he was in the same breath, and he was like, and since you guys are doing this, he's also my baby, so you to take care of him. Yeah. So it's not just the man being intentional about his heart, but even if as a woman that's going to say, oh yes, I want to pursue you, you're also conscious of the fact. I was conscious of the fact that this is God's son. I'm not just God's princess. This is also God's baby. This is God's son. And knowing that you're not playing about. If you're not interested, say you're not interested. If you still want to try to have a friendship, you can test it. It may work, it might not work. Or if you are interested, again, prayerfully taking God along and just like, okay, yeah, so I treat him or treated you like this because you're God's son as well, and I need to be conscious of the fact I'm not stringing you along. Am I actually interested? Just all these little things that also just help to paint the picture and solidify that, okay, this is somebody that I want to be with. Because then you can hear God say that maybe not. Oh, that thing, can you live with it? Yes, no. And just thinking through with God is a very, very vital part, because sometimes we might be confused. We might not even know what's best for us as human beings, and God knows what's best. Not that we don't have choice, but if you're so confused and you go to God, then trust him to also lead that. This person is good for you, for this, for that, and the other.
That's good.
Yeah. That is such good stuff. I don't even know where to start from.
Wow.
It's good on so many levels. I love what you said about just learning how God speaks to you. I think it's a big danger zone that people fall into, where the first decision you ever want to approach God for is marriage. But this is real. Like, this is actually real. You've done life this far. You are in your big 20s, whatever.
Yeah.
You haven't made a habit of seeking God about, should I take this job? Should I do this? Should I do that? But suddenly now marriage, you're like, oh God, is he the one? Is she the one? You are in the prime zone of deceit for the enemy to just, because you have not discerned. The Bible says like that by reason of use, you discern your senses to be able to respond to God. But you've not used that sense at all. The sense, go sharp.
Yeah.
So you said that, and it just spoke to my spirit, so because I think that what we should be doing in these times, in the waiting periods, is really like sharpening that ability to hear God, so that when God says that's the one, it's not that you're still like, is hello, testing.
Is it really you?
Is it really you, Lord? And that's one thing you said. And then another thing as well is that balance, that healthy balance of, I believe I've heard God, I've prayed, I've really, really tried to work through and sanctify my emotions. If I now do mistake, if by any chance, I've got it wrong, I believe in God's sovereignty and his ability to redirect me. And I loved what you said there. So even when you go into it, it's back to that, what is the worst that can happen? If I now find out where is mistake,
go back.
You just go back. Like you go right back to God. And if, again, this is also coming to how we now date. If we're dating in a way that's God honoring, that's like protecting, again, love what you said about looking out for, and this came up in our last conversation, caring about the other person, not being selfish, like actually caring about, this is also God's son. Because I feel like many times we are so concerned, my list, I want this, I want that. On the other side of the list is a human being. I also want this, I want that. And it's God who is able to weave those two things together, right? So it's also about really, really checking our emotions and like testing, what's behind. You guys are preaching today.
My sister.
that is so good. That is so good. I guess one thing I also like to touch on is, because Love and Life is all about like community and how we do life as a community. What role did your communities, like each of your communities, play in your journey?
Do you want to go first?
Please take the lead,
Oh
sir.
my gosh. Get off the stage.
Man of God, please.
Man of God, sir, please.
Wow. I think there's a lot there for me as far as community. I think, again, at that time, I was living with some friends. And I think the support, I can't thank them enough for the support, I guess. Because when I made the decision, and even through the relationship, I think when I made the decision, again, similar to like, am I sure? Is this what I want to go for? Kind of speaking to my friends and saying, what do you see? Even if I'm sure, even if I feel convinced, feelings can be very like, yeah, cool, I'm convinced right now, But like, what do you see? Do you think it makes sense? Do you think it works? Do you think that kind of stuff? And I got good feedback. And when I say good feedback, I don't mean like, oh, I got just a yes, but I also got like good questions. Good, okay, why do you feel this way? Just questioning so people can actually kind of, see where my heart was at. And I guess from there, it's like, yeah, no, it makes sense. And yeah, just having trusted friends who I knew walked with God, but who loved me as well, who knew me, who also were very, I don't like to call it a balance, because I don't think it's a balance. I think it's just true Christianity, who loved Jesus and were like normal people, I put in quotes. And what I mean by that is, again, they saw it from a 3D perspective, essentially, just like relationships are about friendship, about how much you laugh, how much, this person loves Jesus, all things together. So that was beautiful. And I think I also had like people who were older than me, who I spoke to, who wouldn't just because you're my friend, I'll just tell you what you want to hear. And that was good as well. I think that those two things, at least on my side, were very helpful. And I'll just, I guess, touch on in the relationship, before I essentially asked you, before I proposed, basically, I didn't go to kind of do those things by myself. I had friends praying with me when things were scary. I had friends praying on the wedding day. I was at the start of the wedding, before you walk down the aisle. I was nervous. I had friends praying for me. I had friends that stayed up with me all night. I didn't sleep the night before. I had friends that stayed up with me all night. Do you know what I mean? Some of the best men slept sharp, but some of them, some of them slept, they know who they are.
Shade. Oh my god. No, this is getting really good. And we're gonna stay on this like community piece, because I love it. Because even I remember the conversation we had before you proposed as well. And we'll get into all of that. So guys, it's getting good. It's getting juicier. But we're gonna have to continue the conversation in part 2. So we will see you guys on the next episode.
Cheers. Thank you for watching another episode of Love and Life.
Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe.
Bye.